I hope this anime changes shonen. Hello medics, today's patient, Frieren. It's this anime season's best written anime, best animated anime, most wholesome anime. I say we nuke all of anime Twitter. This anime is the Neapolitan ice cream of the genre. It has a little bit of everything. I don't think it defies shonen, but it definitely sets a great precedent for where the direction of the genre can go, and how shonen can reach new heights of how stories are portrayed for this target demo. So Frieren starts after the Demon King is defeated, which is a different angle from your usual fantasy anime. Doing this removes the big omnipotent evil and makes you wonder, what will they do in order to keep you attached to the story? It's sort of a risky move, but it's a fresh perspective on fantasy storytelling. There's a heavy emphasis on character development rather than your typical hero's journey. So the opposite of Fairy Tail, Black Clover, Reincarnated as a Slime, One Piece, having this approach to character writing, especially coming from a Shonen Jump release, can have a lot of people mistake the pacing as slow, especially when all you see online, on Twitter specifically, are people hyping up these incredible action scenes. Holy, Studio Madhouse went crazy. So when you start watching it, you might go, yo, what's up with all this slice of life shit? In other shonen anime, let's take Naruto for an example, action is the main driving force. Throughout the Chunin exams, we see a lot of action-packed episodes that have underlying themes in it, like determination and self-discovery, which by no means is a bad way to tell a story at all. It's just in Frieren, the action isn't what drives the show, which is kinda insane because of how top tier these action sequences are. They're really cool to watch, but in the grand scheme of the whole show, I could care less about them. Don't get me wrong, I was still blown away by all of the hype moments, especially the Frieren mirror match, that was so fire. But it's Frieren's take on character development that made me like it so much. The show isn't trying to move on and challenge the next catastrophic event like a Demon King, but instead is driven by themes of regret, moving forward, and finding your own identity. The first episode of Frieren might be my favorite episode, which now that I think about it after saying it is kind of weird. Like, episode 1 of One Piece is my favorite because I'm not watching the rest of that shit. Yo, I gotta stop hating on One Piece because I'd probably like it. But episode 1 of Frieren is my favorite episode, not because it's the best episode necessarily, but because it encompasses everything that the show is. It could honestly be a standalone short film, and the messaging in it sets the tone for the whole show. Our main character, Frieren, is an old hag. 99% of the time, she's the oldest person in the room and the most naive. She's a blank canvas that doesn't understand and has dismissed the idea of human connection. When Hemo, Heiter, Aizen, and Frieren get together for one last gathering, they reminisce on the fun times that they had on their journey defeating the Demon King. Hemo thanks the party for making the last 10 years a journey of his lifetime, and Frieren responds confused, questioning how a mere 10 years could be considered the journey of his lifetime. The thing is, Frieren is an elf. She's lived for over 1,000 years, so she's numb to the idea of time. But Hemo is human, so he's like, what do you mean a mere 10 years is 10 years? In the beginning of this show, Frieren is so unable to look outside of herself. She takes for granted the luxury of time that she has being born as an elf, like when she leaves the village for 50 years and comes back surprised that Hemo is now old, or not understanding why Hemo took so much pride in keeping an item for over 50 years for her. These are things that she doesn't attempt to understand until it's too late. She takes Hemo on an adventure to see the meteor shower, then he takes an adventure to a casket. Frieren's a little stone-faced at Hemo's funeral until she overhears some people calling her heartless for not showing any emotion at the service, which is kinda out of pocket to call someone at a funeral heartless because they're not showing the emotion you think they should have. It's wild. At the burial, Frieren breaks down in frustration, and she admits that she truly never knew who Hemo was as a person, and she doesn't understand how it's even possible to learn about someone in only 10 years. Why didn't she try to learn more about Hemo on their 10-year adventure? This feeling of uneasiness motivates Frieren to have a new objective. As Heiter, Aizen, and Frieren disband once again, Frieren sets off to learn more about humankind. And all of this happens within the first 15 15 minutes of the first episode and it doesn't feel rushed. Again, it honestly feels like it could have been a short film on its own because of the combination of the voice acting, the montages for the passage of time, the art, the animation, and the grandiose music. These OSTs are so fire. They sound like Breath of the Wild. I was so locked in and ready to watch the rest of this masterpiece. The unfortunate relatability of not appreciating the moments you have, and in Frieren's case, someone passing and feeling like you didn't have enough time to get to know someone as much as you wanted to, it was really well done. It's a feeling I hope not everyone can relate to, but I know a lot of people can. So using Frieren's desire to learn what she doesn't understand sets the show up to stray off the path of a generic journey. And on this journey, she picks up 2 students. It's almost like Shonen magazine was like, yo, we need a story that does the opposite of what we usually do. Led by action? Nah, put some emotional slice of life in there. Student-teacher relationship? Nah. Teacher-student relationship. Everything's just flipped. Before Heiter also took an adventure to a casket, he was able to get Frieren to take on Fern as an apprentice, an orphan he saved from committing Roblox snow life. There's this cool mentor-student dynamic between Fern and Frieren that I found really interesting. Throughout the show, Frieren is reminiscing about her past life and is starting to understand the importance of those experiences in the present. This is mostly because of her new journeys with Fern. Frieren also recognizes that Fern can easily go down the same path as her past self and not understand the importance of her own choices. Whether intentional or not, Frieren is able to guide Fern away from a mentality of dismissing major aspects of her life. The first time we see this is when Frieren and Fern spend 6 months trying to find a flower, you old hag. I felt so bad for Fern. But when they're finally able to find the flower, there's this moment where Fern questions Frieren on why magic is so important to her. You see, before Frieren became the legendary mage that she is, she used to live her life day by day with no real sense of purpose. When she discovered magic, finding all types of random spells gave her a new objective in life. Magic wasn't necessarily something that she was super in love with, but it gave her something to live for over 1,000 years. Ever since Frieren met this little purple-haired munchkin, she could tell that they were both alike in the way that magic kinda saved them. I mean, Fern was about to do a 360 no-scope off of a cliff until Heiter convinced her to keep on living and become a mage. So when Fern questions why magic is so important to Frieren, Frieren knows that deep down that Fern understands why. Just like how magic gave Frieren a sense of purpose, it gave Fern that same thing. Even though both of them may not be fully in love with magic, is essentially the reason why they're still living. So Frieren tells her that, and it's exactly what Fern needed to come to terms with a major part of her identity. When Fern helps Frieren learn about things, it's not as direct. For example, in the beach episode, I'm saying that with quotation marks, there's this moment where Frieren goes to see the New Year sunrise. The reason she went to go see it is because back when she was traveling with the Heroes Party, she skipped out on going to the sunrise with Himmel, Heiter, and Eisen, and Himmel was trying to tell her how much she would have loved it. So she essentially went to the sunrise with Fern to see if there was any validity in what Himmel was saying. And as they're watching the sunrise, Frieren admits that the sunrise is pretty, but it's nothing worth waking up early for. She starts to doubt that Himmel knew what type of person she actually was. But then she notices how enamored Fern is with the sunrise. And Fern turns to Frieren and tells her to stop acting like she's not enjoying this as much as her. And Frieren responds to that by saying that she's only enjoying this because she's watching it with Fern. And that's when it all clicks for her. Even though she's doing something that's not interesting to her, she's able to enjoy the moment because she's doing it with someone who she's close to. Also, this moment is so subtle and not in your face. They let you put 2 and 2 together of how Frieren is feeling in the moment instead of having Frieren do this internal dialogue thing that every anime does with their characters. I love when anime does this. It's just, let us figure out what's going on instead of directly telling us. But yeah, I thought this was a really good way to write a mentor-student dynamic between 2 characters. Fern is indirectly helping Frieren understand the meaning of her past, which causes Frieren to help Fern understand the meaning of her present. God, fire writing. Hold on, who wrote this? Let me see. Kanehito Yamada, you're like that. you're like that. There's also this cool moment where Frieren and Fern visit Aizen, and Aizen sees how much Frieren has changed as a person since the last time he saw her. I think 30 years had went by. If you recall in episode 1, Frieren makes the claim that 10 years is barely enough time for anything substantial to affect her. And in knowing this, Aizen tells Frieren that it's funny how a mere 10 years has changed her so much. Again, Miss Yamada, you are like that. Character development peak. It's at this part of the video where I call British people demonic. Stay with me. I think Frieren may be an allegory for the American Revolutionary War. You know how back in the day soldiers used to line up in front of each other and shoot their muskets at their enemies? And this was seen as an honorary way to fight. And then Americans were like, yo, this is stupid. Why don't we just not fight fair? This was exactly how Flamma and Frieren were able to overcome the most powerful of demons, by beating them in quote-unquote non-respectable mage combat. And I'm just kidding about the allegory part, but demons. What's great about demons in this show is that we're not getting too philosophical. We already have complex, in-depth relationships between our protagonists and extended cast. We don't need evil man Zob stories when it comes to demons. And Frieren, simply put, they're just evil. At first when I saw this, I thought Frieren was being racist towards demons when she first relayed to Fern and Stark that they're not to be trusted at all, especially considering the fact that the first demons introduced were peace envoys. And you know, Frieren is still learning about people, so I thought maybe this was gonna take a route of, oh, demons aren't so bad after all, which would have been kinda generic and reminiscent of Promised Neverland Season 2, so I'm glad they didn't take that route. Now, demon mages are portrayed as these evil, prideful individuals who think that the respectful way for mages to fight is to flex how much mana you have and fight each other directly. Fern, who was taught by Frieren, who was taught by Flamma, conceal their mana in order to make opponents severely underestimate them. Demons quickly learn the hard way from this deception that you're not him, pal. I point to you the Aura and Frieren face-off. When Aura was confused on why she couldn't beat a mage with so much less mana than her, Frieren responds, "Here lies before you is a mage who's lived for over 1,000 years. And then she proceeds to do one of the most chilling flexes of power in anime that I've seen in a while. That line, along with the visuals and the OST, gave me goosebumps. Also the most swaggy way I've seen someone tell somebody to KYS.
Kill yourself.
Frieren is super OP. And what's great about this is that she handles only the battles that she needs to, and lets people like Fern and Stark show their growth as they unlock their inner potential. Hold on, I just thought about this as I'm recording. Frieren is Ayana Koji. Overpowered, nonchalant, wants to learn more about human connection. Yo, this is a ripoff. I love how magic intersects with the plot of the show instead of just being a tool used for combat. The most notable example for me is the interactions between Sari and Frieren. Sari, being the most powerful mage, looks down on Frieren because she sees the potential in Frieren that Frieren just can't see for herself. Instead of going under Sari's wing and learning the most powerful of spells, Frieren finds importance in spells that Sari finds utterly useless. For example, Frieren's favorite spell isn't the ability to drop a nuke on somebody's head, but instead it's a spell that creates a field of flowers. A spell that Sari thinks is idiotic and pointless, but from Frieren's perspective, this is one of the most powerful spells of all. It's the spell that allowed her to honor her mentor. It's one that saved Himmel and down the road brought her together to the hero's party, a party that defeated the Demon King. It's a spell where she first received praise, and was the spell that triggered her first steps to self-discovery. I mean, God, Yamada, you were cooking. You were cooking this season. Frieren's extended cast and action sequences made me find a new appreciation for magic and mages. I've never really found mages cool, I guess. For me, they've always been dull and still, usually in the background healing or amplifying the actual fighters. I've never seen mages look so cool until watching Frieren. I mean, this walking standoff in the mirror match with Frieren is so cold. Bro, I gotta get into more fantasy and magic stuff. Yo, is Harry Potter this cool? Frieren is my favorite type of anime. Attack on Titan, Vinland Saga, Heavenly Delusion, and now Frieren. These are anime that choose to be extremely intentional with their themes and dialogue and use that as a driving force for their show. And then they have their animation and action sequences bring these ideas home. Frieren shows that there's more to a hero's journey than just defeating an evil boss. There's way more conflict in trying to understand the things that we don't know. How will people be remembered? What happens after we die? Does legacy even matter? Regret, fear, love, identity, resilience, and acceptance. Frieren has taken all of these themes and compacted them into a balanced season of reflection and excitement, which, in my opinion, is the best way for anime moving forward to tell great stories. And, it's obviously working. Oh, and I forgot to say the English dub is better.
You were exceptional. Well done.
Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about Frieren in the comments. I'd love to know what you guys think about the show. Till next time.